Hello there, McKnox here, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, then let me give you the quick rundown. I am a crochet artist. I do other things, film, literature, gaming, but you're not here for that. If you clicked on this video, then you're here for this little loaf cat. Courtesy of Casey Lee for giving me the idea. Lately, I've been making things like this, my little goblin hat. Go check out that video. But I wanted to go back to my roots. So today, we are making the loaf cat instead. And with that being said, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and leave a comment down below. And let's get started. Okay, so when it comes to making this project, you have some versatility. You can use whatever yarn you wish, but I've been making these using a chenille yarn called Yarn Bee. This color right here is sandstone. I will note that weirdly, while the standard size of most of these is weight 5, the white is a 4 weight, so just keep that in mind. You can use whatever yarn you want though. For this tutorial, I'll be using acrylic yarn to make it a little bit easier for you to see what I'm doing. Later on, when I do the details on the face, I'll be doing it on this gray cat that I've already made. And with that being said, let's go over what you need. First and foremost, your hook. Since I'm dealing with a smaller yarn, I'll be using a 3.5mm. If you're using chenille, you can go a little higher and use a 4. However, I did use my 3.5 when working with the chenille yarn. Then of course, a pair of scissors, tapestry needle, stuffing, some eye pins, and the eye backs to go with them. Now, if you want to add the bow, you can also add a bell. And for the whiskers, I'm using embroidery floss. You can use regular yarn or fishing line, or just not add them at all. Now, when it comes to my yarn, my body color, and again, I'm making this in acrylic just to show you, but you can use whatever type of yarn you want. Then a color for the stripes. White for the face, tail tip, and paws. Blue for the highlights around the eyes. This is harder to see on the chenille, but shows up better on acrylic. And then a color for the bow. You also need a length of pink yarn. And that's it, so let's get started. And to start the face, I'll be starting with this white. If you don't want to do the markings, just use your body color. And start with a magic circle of 8 single crochet. Typically, when I make amigurumi, I start with a magic circle of 6. But we're using 8 because this will keep our cat's face flatter rather than more rounded. Once you have 8 single crochet, close your circle. For the next round, we're increasing from 8 to 16. So put 2 single crochet into every stitch. But when you get to your last stitch, pause there, because we'll be doing a color change, and I'll show you how to do that. For your last stitch, go in, pull up that yarn, and then stop. Cut that white tail, then take your body color and attach it to your hook. Pull it through those loops to finish that single crochet. Pull those tails tightly. Remove the marker for now, and then chain 1. And now we're going to increase from 16 to 24. Start by putting a single crochet into that first stitch, and then an increase into the next. And you're just going to repeat that. Single crochet, and then increase. Repeat these 2 steps until the end of the round. Count your stitches as you go, and make sure you have 24. I just finished my last increase. I'm going to skip that chain 1 I made at the start of the round, push into that first single crochet I made, and do a slip stitch. Now I'm going to insert my marker. And from here, we're going back to working in continuous rounds. So do not chain at the start of each round. And for this round, we're increasing from 24 to 32. So start by making a single crochet into the first 2 stitches. Then an increase in the third one. And just repeat that. 2 single crochet, and then an increase. And when you get to the end of the round, make sure you have 32 stitches. Okay, I have 32 stitches. If your circle looks a little wonky, don't worry, it'll smooth out. I'm going to pause here so that I can take care of these threads. If you made your magic circle using the chain method, this will be especially helpful to you. You may notice that your center is gaping open, and it'll gape open more as you stuff it. So I'm going to show you a trick to fix that. Start by threading that first yarn tail onto your needle. Pull it tight. Then look at the back of your work and find a back loop of one of those first single crochet. Push your needle through and give that yarn a little tug. Go into another back loop right next to it. Pull it lightly again. Do this one more time, but on the last time, push your needle through that loop and then pull it down. You can even see the difference for me, and I didn't use the chain method to make this. This will help to keep that space closed. Then just knot these two strands together very tightly and cut them short. Alright, let's get back to it. Okay, so at this point, you need to decide how long you want to make your cat. If you want your cat to look like mine here, you may want to make 15 to 17 rounds of single crochet. With this cat in particular, I counted 17. Sometimes acrylic can make the cat look a little bit longer. If you want your cat to be more round than long, I'd say maybe do 9 or 10 rounds of single crochet rather than 17. For me though, I'll be doing the full 17 rounds. So all you're going to do is put a single crochet into each stitch. And you want to keep moving your marker every round or two. Make sure to keep track of how many rounds you've made, or you can write them down. However, after 3 rounds of single crochet, I'm going to pause and insert my eyes. I just finished my 3rd round. When it comes to inserting the first eye, you want to count over 3 spaces from the center. You can space them a little closer or further out, but for me, over 3. But then I'm going up 1 and inserting my eye into that spot. Take my second eye and do the same thing on the other side. Count over 3 spaces, go up 1, insert my eye. Take a moment to move them around a little bit, make sure you like them, and when you're done, insert your eye backs. Now continue on crocheting. I've already made 3 rounds, so I'm going to make another 14. Make however many you want, but if you have a specific number in mind, keep track. And I'll meet you at the end. Phew! I finished my 17 rounds. Now, you want to start stuffing your project. And push it down deep into your head. Be careful not to overstuff it, because trust me, it's going to start stretching your stitches. When it comes to the chenille yarn, you can see that's not as big a concern. If you're making a loaf cat with an acrylic yarn, or you're using a larger hook, then you just want to be very, very careful. And make sure that you're pushing it down deep into your head, working into those spaces and into those gaps. Something you can also do is roll your project between your palms and form it with your hands. And you can see also that the face is pretty flat. You don't have to stuff them too much right now. You can add more later before we sew up the back. I've reinserted my marker and hook. We're going to start decreasing. And when I decrease, I make an invisible decrease. And I'll show you how I do that. When working with chenille yarn, I found decreasing a bit difficult. So instead of doing a decrease over 2 stitches, I just skipped a stitch and then did a single crochet. And that seemed to work pretty well. For acrylic though, I'm doing invisible decreases. And to do that, I start by pushing into that first front loop, just the front, then I pivot my hook and push into the next front loop, grab my yarn, pull it through, and then make a single crochet. I prefer making invisible decreases because they're practically seamless. Again, if you're using the chenille, you can just skip a stitch. So after that decrease, I'm making 2 single crochet, and repeat that. Decrease, then 2 single crochet. And at the end of the round, you should have 24 stitches. Move your stitch marker. Alright, I've reached the end of the round. I've started stuffing him a little more. I know he looks a little funny right now, but don't worry about that. For this next round, we're decreasing from 24 to 16. Start with a single crochet and then make a decrease. Single crochet, decrease. Do that a total of 8 times and you will have 16 stitches. I've removed my stitch marker because I don't really need it at this point. I'm going to start shoving some more stuffing into the cat. I'm rolling it in my hands, but also on the table, and this will help to shape it. The rolling helps to evenly disperse the stuffing. When you're done, reinsert your hook. And for this round, we're decreasing from 16 to 8 stitches. So just make a decrease all the way around. If you don't end up with exactly 8 stitches, if you have 7, if you have 9, that's fine. And when you're done, fasten off and leave a tail for sewing. Okay, attaching my yarn to my needle. And to sew them up, what we do is we skip this first stitch right here. Go into the front loops of this next one and pull it through. Give it a tug. Skip the next one, go through those loops, and tug it again. And you can see that that hole is starting to close up. And as your stitches pull closer, you can just start weaving back and forth through those loops to close them up. Go back and forth a few times. When you're done, pull your tail out somewhere for later. Shorten it a little bit and roll him around a little bit more. And there he is, that's the body. So let's move on to the tail. I'm starting with my white yarn and I'm making a magic circle of 6 single crochet. Now I'm increasing from 6 to 12 stitches. So put 2 single crochet into every stitch and insert my stitch marker. I have my 12 stitches and I cut my inside yarn, and now I'm just going to put a single crochet into every one of those 12 stitches for 3 rounds. Move your marker at the end of each round. However, on my last stitch of the 3rd round, I will be changing colors. Okay, I have my body color ready, and I'm going to start making my last single crochet. Go in, loop up, attach my gray yarn, and then finish that single crochet. Tug on those yarn tails, and then chain 1. Now make 1 round of single crochet. When you get to your last stitch, you're going to then skip that chain we made and slip stitch to join the first single crochet, and place my marker. And while I'm at it, I'm going to knot and cut these tails. For the next 6 rounds, I'm just putting a single crochet into each stitch. Now, if you want a shorter tail, you can do 4 or 5 rounds. If you want a longer one, just add a couple of rounds. For me, I'm making 6 rounds. Move your stitch marker at the end of every 1 or 2 rounds, but don't fasten off. Okay, just finished those 6 rounds. For the next one, we're decreasing from 12 to 10 stitches. So I'm just going to start off with an invisible decrease, then make 4 single crochet, then another decrease, and then 4 more single crochet. Alright, for our last round, I'm going to remove the stitch marker, and all I'm going to do is make 10 single crochet, and then at the end, cut my yarn and fasten off. And now we're going to stuff the tail. And when you're stuffing the tail, don't stuff it super thick. I want it to be squishy and a little flattish. And once you're satisfied with it, we'll sew it on. Alright, so I threaded that yarn onto my needle. And I'm going to position that last stitch that my tail is coming out of about the center like this. And pick up my project, I'm going to find the middle of my cat's face. And then trace down all the way to the back of my project. And push my needle into the stitch right here, that's about the center, and just start sewing it on. Come up and into the next 2 stitches, out the next one over, up and over the next stitch, and back down into the body. Sew through your stitches in this looping method. And as you sew, keep checking the placement of your tail. You're going to have to use your best judgment here. If you have to sew through a spot twice on your tail or body, that's just fine. I'm going to add a little more stuffing and then just sew those last few stitches. Then bring my yarn out with this tail right here and knot and hide them. Now that I've sewn the tail on, I'm going to move on to making my ears. You can make them one of two ways, either a magic circle or the chain method. I'll be using the chain method because it's easier and I don't intend on stuffing my ears. I'm going to start by chaining 2, tighten that knot, then in the second chain from my hook, make 3 single crochet. I know it can be a little bit tricky to work with a project this small. Now we have 3 single crochet. I'm going to cross over into that first stitch and make an increase. Make a single crochet into the next stitch. And in the third one, make another increase. So now you should have 5 single crochet. Alright, for this round, I'm increasing from 5 to 7. And you really don't need a stitch marker when making the ear. So start with an increase into that first stitch, then make 2 single crochet. In the fourth stitch, make an increase, and then a single crochet into the last. Cut that inside yarn. For this next round, I'm increasing from 7 to 9. Start with an increase, then make 3 single crochet, another increase, and then 2 single crochet. For this last round, I'm just putting a single crochet into all 9 stitches. Fasten off at the end and make a second ear. When it comes to sewing the ear on, you can use pins to keep your ear in place as you sew. I'm just going to hold mine down, but this can make sewing a bit trickier. And when I'm sewing, I'm going to use the same method with the ear as I did the tail. Come up and out of a stitch, loop up and down through your ear and your head. For this cat, I think I'm going to space his ears out just a little bit more, maybe tilt them. You can place them wherever you wish. Each cat is a little unique. And I won't be stuffing my ears. I don't want his ears to be too bulky. You can see that I'm placing my ears a little bit differently from this first one. Sewing on your second ear can be very annoying. Just try to be patient. Look at where your ears lined up in accordance to your eyes. Count over the spaces and the number of rounds. Your cat's eyes are going to be your guide as to where to place your second ear. I feel like if you're using the chenille yarn and your ear isn't quite where it should be, it's definitely less noticeable. Again, use pins if it makes it easier to sew your ear on. And when you're done, bring the 2 tail ends together and knot and hide them. Alright, we're moving on to the feet, and the feet are really easy. I'm starting with my white and make a magic circle of 8 single crochet. Close your circle, and for the next round, you're doing 1 single crochet into every stitch. However, in the last stitch, I'm switching colors. Swap into that gray yarn. I'm going to start by chaining 1, then make 1 round of single crochet. When I get to the end, skip that chain 1 and slip stitch into the first single crochet. Fasten off and leave a tail for sewing. Then I'm going to take all 3 of these inside strands and just knot them together. Cut them short and tuck them into the foot. Now make 4 of these and we'll sew them on. Alright, I've finished my paws. Attaching one to my yarn needle, I'm going to flip my cat over. Where you place the paws is up to you. Generally, I place mine 6 rounds down from where the white on the face meets the gray. And right about here, I insert my needle. and pinning the paw to the body, I set them down and get an idea of the paw's placement when I sew all 4 on. And just start weaving in and out of the stitches of the paw and the body. I know that right about here marks where I want the edge of my foot to be sewn. And as I continue sewing, just check in to make sure I like where I'm putting it. And after I've sewn the first one on, take my second and line it up with the first paw. And I can see that the edge of my paw is lined up with the edge of my eye. This gives me a really good idea of where to place this second paw. I'm going to start sewing it on here. Pin it and take a look, checking it out, and just continue sewing. Remember to check in as you go. When you're done, bring the tails to meet, knot and hide them. For the back feet, it's not any different really. Line them up with the front feet, pin it to find the placement, and sew them on as you did the others. Make sure that your second back paw lines up with both ones parallel to it. Knot and hide your tails. Alright, I finished up his paws, and I'm going to show you how to make this bow. If you don't want your bow to be as big as mine, you can use half double crochets instead of double crochets. I'll put both on screen for you. So taking this blue I chose, I'm going to make a magic circle. Then chain 3. Yarning over, I'm going into that magic circle and making 3 double crochet. Chain 3 again, and then slip stitch into that circle. Your circle is going to stretch out a bit, but don't worry about it. Chain 3 once more. Go back in and make another 3 double crochet. Chain 3 again, and slip stitch into the middle. Now close your circle. Remember, you can use the chain method to make this also. Pull your circle closed. When you fasten off and pull that yarn through, make sure that you have a long strand. Now I'm going to thread that long tail onto my needle, and I'm going to start wrapping the yarn around the center of that bow. To give the bow a little more definition, I'm pulling tightly on my yarn as I wrap it. This will also make it appear a little bit smaller than the first one that I showed you. Play around with it a little bit. After a few times, flip your bow and push your needle under those back loops in the back of your bow. Bring the yarn back to the front again. Grab your bell and push your needle into the loop. Pull your bell down to the base of the bow. Loop over the bow center a couple more times. And then push your needle through those back loops once more. And there you go. And now we're going to add the details to the face. And when it comes to the details, I'm going to start by threading that strip of pink yarn. Push into my head, and finding the center right here, come out 1 stitch over. Then come down 1 and move over 2. Push into that stitch, and then come up 1 above it. Do not pull your yarn tightly. Now I'm going to cross over into the spot below that first stitch, making an X. Bring the tails out together. Play with the yarn a little bit, and once you're happy with it, knot your ends and hide them. Now when it comes to making the highlight around the eyes, this can be a bit difficult. When I did this one, you can only see it a little bit because I used acrylic yarn. It might be easier to use a thicker yarn. To start, I'm going to push my needle in and come down about the base of that eye. Coming up to this corner, I'm going to push down again. Now I'm going to maneuver upwards like this, but you might find it difficult if your eye back is in the way. If that's the case, just come out somewhere else and then just maneuver back to this spot. And I'm not pulling my yarn tightly either. I'm just going in and out of those stitches around one side of my eye. Mine certainly isn't perfect, but it's kind of just to give you an idea. And you don't have to do it all around the eye. You can do it just for part of the eye. Use your needle to push the threads around just a little bit. Be careful not to pop your eye back off. If you do, you can use a strong glue and replace your eye. Now I'll show you how I made my stripes. I'm going to start in the back and then move forward. You can place your stripes wherever you want. I know I want a bigger stripe, probably about here. So I'm going to push my needle up and through. I'm going to look at where it's lined up. Make sure to leave a tail. And I'm going to find the same spot on the other side. Go across and down into that spot. And I'm not pulling the yarn tightly. I don't want it tight, but I don't want it loose. So now I'm going back in and coming up one round above that first stripe. But I want it to be a little smaller, so I'm going over one stitch. Then cross over to the same spot on the other side. My stripes look a little lopsided, but I can play with them and straighten them out a bit. From here, I'm going to find the middle of my head, push my needle out here, and make sure I'm still in the center. Go in and don't pull tightly on that yarn. There's my first stripe. I'm just going to move over to this stitch and make a smaller one. Cross over and make a small stripe on the other side. This one doesn't line up quite as well for me, but that's alright. You could take the time to fiddle with your stripes a little more than I am. Now for the cheeks, I'm looking for the center of my eye on this side. Count over 3 stitches and push my needle in. Then maneuver back towards my eye, find my next spot. Move over 4 stitches and make another stripe. Come down, move over 1 and make another small one. And then just make your stripes on the other side to match as best as you can. Knot and hide your tails. Alright, so I've finished the stripes. I'm going to add his whiskers. And for this, I'm using embroidery floss. You can use yarn or fishing line, whatever works for you. When I made my first cat, I lined them up with the base of that white. So I'm going to do that again. Push it through that stitch and up one. Knot and cut them. I'll trim them later. Then go to the other side and do the same thing. Trim both sides to the same length. You may be able to stiffen the whiskers by coating them hairspray or a little bit of Mod Podge. And if you don't like your whiskers, you can easily cut them out and replace them. Alright, let's add the bow. This is our last step and it's pretty easy. Thread that short tail onto your needle. Find the spot you want to place your bow on the cat. Push your needle into that spot and out 2 stitches over. Also, make sure that your bow is facing the right way. I'm going to push my needle through the back loops of this bow. If you can't push through all of them, that's alright. Then go back down into that first stitch and out somewhere else. Take your second strand and taking a look, go down into the same stitch. Then through the back loops of my bow and down into the other spot. Bring my tails together, knot and hide them. And there's the cat finished. The gray one is a little bit smaller, a little bit different. I definitely pulled my stitches tighter when I made it, but they're both pretty cute. And that's it for this tutorial. So let's get back to the table. Alright, and that's the video. If you made it this far, then why don't you hit like, subscribe, and share, and go check out some of my other videos while you're at it. I think you might like this one in particular. And with that being said, this has been McKnox, and I'll see you soon.